our bodies need time to heal and repair and digest food. They need a break. Just like we need rest, our system needs a rest. And so it's really just food timing. And there's no rules, and that's what I tell people. There's no rules to intermittent fasting. It's just really tapping into your intuition and honoring what your body is telling you.
This is the Entrepology Podcast, the podcast where we optimize the bodies, brains, and lifestyles of entrepreneurs, go-getters, and world-changing innovators.
Welcome to the Entrepology Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Walker. As a naturopathic doctor and anthropologist, I optimize the health and performance of badass women working to change the world as entrepreneurs and go-getters. People exactly like you. Your business, body, balance, and inner badass. These are the themes we are exploring. So if you're hanging out with us over the last few weeks, you'll notice that we have a little bit of a theme. So a few weeks ago, we were talking about mindset and business tactics as we move into 2021. And I want to really address and unpack some of the health pieces and health conversations that I know are going to help people as we move into the new year. My guest today, Missy Bane, is a functional diagnostic nutritionist with a particular focus in her practice around detoxification and intermittent fasting. Now, as we move into the new year and as we talk about what is my new way of eating, what are some of the things that I want to explore in order to biohack or get healthy into this new year, I know for many of you, intermittent fasting is on the top of your list. In my conversation today with Missy, we break down what intermittent fasting is all about, the things that you need to have in place in your health in order to really benefit from it, and the outcome of intermittent fasting on both weight management and cognitive performance. It is a beautiful blend of a new way of eating, biohacking, and a New Year's resolution all rolled into one. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to my guest today, Missy Bane. Missy Bane, welcome to the Entrepology Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Megan. I'm excited to be here.
Well, this is going to be a really important and timely conversation because we've got a bunch of stuff that we're going to unpack today. I want to learn a little bit more about your role in your career as a functional diagnostic nutritionist. And then also because it's the end of the year and we're all aligning our goals for 2021, we're really going to delve into your unique area of expertise, which is talking about detoxification and intermittent fasting, because I know this is on everyone. It's in the back of people's mind. Everyone's in like full-fledged holiday indulgence mode, but they're all like, okay, what's on the backside of this? And I would really love to give people a strong foundation as they walk into the early part of 2021. But before we do that, Missy, I'm hoping you can give everyone a little bit of a background in terms of who you are. How did we get to this place in your career? Because you have had a really varied career. I love this. I love this in entrepreneurs because you're able to pull from all these different pieces. But I think your story and background is so intriguing. I'd love for you to share it with our audience.
Yeah, so not to go through all the nitty gritty, but yeah, out of college, I was a retail buyer and I loved what I did and had an opportunity to go work for a music company, Circuit City. I don't know if you have that up where you were years ago, kind of like a Best Buy. And I opened their music business and it was a really exciting career. And then one of the music distribution companies needed a sales rep and it was a perfect opportunity. I jumped on that. So, and then I decided to stay home with our second child and didn't transition to being a stay-at-home mom very well. So I kind of started photographing them and people around me and just kind of reignited that love for photography. And sure enough, I have an entrepreneurial spirit and eventually started photographing people for money. It was so crazy. And then 17 years later, I closed my portrait photography business and full-time jumped into a functional wellness business that I had started after my own health journey and health crisis. And, got some training and started helping people around me. I guess that's my nature. And that's what we do, probably as women too, is, when you find something that kind of works for you and you have a, transformation, you start sharing it with the people in your world. And that just sort of took on a life of its own in my world. And I found a certification program called the Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. And I was like, yes, that's what I need. I need that diagnostic piece to health coaching that will kind of let me dig a little deeper with clients and really go into like stool testing and hormone testing and just having a little more data, I guess. And so 5 years later, here I am. I'm working one-on-one with clients. I have just launched a new program that I'm really excited about around resetting habits. And so, that's kind of long story short, that's me in a nutshell. And I just love what I do. I jump out of bed every morning and just love what I do.
Isn't it the most amazing thing when you can do that? When your work that you put into the world it's personal. And I think there's something really powerful when that happens. And I think, I don't know if anyone's unpacked this, but I find it really fascinating that when it comes to people in healthcare on the health promotion side and on the upstream side, often for them, it really is so personal, their decisions in terms of how they get into healthcare. And like, no doubt that has an impact in terms of our respective capacity to care for patients. Does this feel like a personal mission to you?
It really does. It really does. And I think, to your point, like, when you get feedback from somebody that says, oh my gosh, the things that you just taught me, or, that session that we just went through and the changes that I made are not only impacting my health, but they're helping my children. They're helping, my sister and her family. And that's an unbelievable feeling. It just is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the legacy of health, right? That just has this capacity to carry on. So in your career on the functional diagnostic nutrition side, I know there's two areas that you really focus on, and I'm super fascinated with these two pieces because it's something I feel like people talk about a lot, but I actually would love to get into the nitty gritty of it. And that is, you have a focus on detoxification and intermittent fasting. Before we jump into what those are, how is it that those came to be a consistent focus within your practice?
Well, honestly, it was a kind of a offspring of my own journey, dealing with kind of like some food issues for myself, but also in my healing journey. When I found intermittent fasting, it really created a huge shift for me in my health. And, just kind of propelled me to kind of start talking to people about it. And the more I talked to people about it, the more I heard not only positive results on the other side, but also people saying, oh, well, you know what? I really don't want to eat when I wake up in the morning, and I'm fine to wait, but for some reason I feel like I need to, and then the detox part, I'm that person who can't go into, a candle store without my brain exploding, or ride in an Uber or a Lyft without literally I'm rolling down the windows when it's 30 degrees outside because, I'm toxic. I was constipated for 15 years, and my doctor just kept telling me, oh, just, take your laxative deficient, basically is what he was telling me, which I knew wasn't the case. And that's what really spurred my health journey. And so I know my, detoxification needs kind of spur from that toxicity from all those years of being, constipated and pooping once a week. Honestly, right. It's just not normal.
Well, and that's just it. I think that people really don't understand that there's a differentiation between this notion of common and normal. And so often I feel like people will have an interaction with their physician, and by no means am I anti-physician, but they're also managing a lot of people where there's a really blurry description of the two. Oh, you know what? It's really common. It's totally normal. Off you go. Right. And it gets people into a lot of trouble. How did you get yourself out of that pattern? Because it's a hard one to break.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The pattern of the illness. Yeah. The constipation and all of it. Yeah. Well, it was the kind of the straw was after 15 years of going to my doctor for my annual GYN visit, and he would say, so what's going on? And every year I'd be like, well, I'm good, but I'm not going to the bathroom. And finally, year 15, I basically said, you know what? I'm still not going. And all these laxatives are not working for me. I don't feel good. I'm not working out anymore. And it's making me a little depressed. And when he wrote me a prescription for an antidepressant, that's when I knew I was truly on my own to figure it out. And I literally started ordering supplements and books. I went online, and it was literally like my house flooded with just everything, food, shakes, all kinds of stuff. And honestly, it was a protein shake that I replaced my breakfast with. And all of a sudden my life changed. And I was like, wait a minute, what's magic in this protein shake? But what I realized, it was not what I was putting in, it was what I was taking out. So I wasn't eating the bagels. I wasn't eating the cereal and the milk. I then found out that realized that I was gluten and dairy sensitive. I've never shown up on any blood work or tests that I have a celiac or any sensitivity, but I know that's what my body tells me. And I finally started listening.
Yeah. And just for people listening, I really want people to make a distinction, because I think sometimes when we talk about health promotion and we put it in the context of physicians, and I often bring up, I'm married to a physician. So I have this really in-depth understanding of what the heck they were trained in. They were not trained as functional practitioners. It is not in their job description to optimize the functioning of our body. So it's not being anti-medical establishment when we talk about that. It's very much, it's not what they do. It's not why we go and see them. We go there so that you can fix a problem. And in particular, their training is really focused on pathology-based issues. What's the disease that we need to manage? And most of the training is around how do we manage it from a medication perspective, not from a lifestyle perspective. And so I think it's really important to inform any of these conversations. I know you know this, Missy, but I'm just sharing this with everybody because I feel like sometimes we shut off, right? We're like, oh, well, if we're going to have this anti-traditional system, this isn't anti-science, it's not anti-traditional system. It's acknowledging the scope of practice of all of the different people on your team. And what I'm hearing you talk about, Missy, is you took radical responsibility for your health. And in order to do that, I think step one is its self-worth thing. But two, we got to understand what everyone's job is in the ecosystem of health. And if we recognize and go, hey, I'm going to go to my physician when I have to deal with a pathological issue because they're really well trained in that, fantastic, you're going to get super results. And if you go to someone who is trained in functional optimization to make sure that you're working at your best, you're going to get even better results. And so I just want to put that context on this conversation, because I think a huge part of anyone's success in any of these verticals is really understanding, the breadth of the expert that you are going to see. And I think that was the reckoning that you really had in your own health, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, totally. And I never want to demonize conventional medicine. There's a place and a time for all of it. But what I advocate is also being, in tune to your body and trusting your instincts. Because I think we can, as women too, we can kind of get away from that, especially when you have a doctor saying, look at your labs. There's nothing on here that says you have this problem. Right. And again, to your point, it's not because they don't want to help you. It's because they're in their lane, and that's where they need to be. So yeah, I agree.
Such a good point. Okay. So let's talk about this intermittent fasting piece, because it's so funny we're talking about this, because even my mother-in-law, who is a conventionally trained pediatric oncologist, was like, Meg, can we sit down and talk about intermittent fasting? And I was like, yeah, we can do that. Because she's like, it's not, I don't know anything about it, nothing. And she's like, and is apple cider vinegar really good for you? I'm like, oh, this is great. This is great stuff. Yay! I had this huge smile on my face because I was like, bring it on. But can we break down the intermittent fasting piece?
Absolutely. Yeah. So really intermittent fasting, and people right now are kind of saying, oh, it's a fad. It's really just food timing. It's, you're in a fed state or you're in a fasted state. And when you're in a fasted state, that's your intermittent fasting, right? And the context that I like to talk about it is, just really helping people to understand we don't need to eat all day, every day. And I think a lot of that was perpetuated by the food companies years ago, when they realized if people out there said, oh, eat every 2 hours to keep your metabolism revved up, they sold more food. And so I don't know, it kind of took on a life of its own. And here we are eating all day, every day. If you think about a kid during the day, and that, it's different as adults and children, obviously, but I look at children these days, and even I did this with my kids. It's like they eat all day, and we don't need to do that. Our bodies need time to heal and repair and digest food. They need a break, just like we need rest, or our system needs a rest. And so it's really just food timing. And there's no rules, and that's what I tell people. There's no rules to intermittent fasting. It's just really tapping into your intuition and honoring what your body is telling you. And what I realized a long time ago is I was a slave to food. And I knew when I had an aha moment when I was at my sister's house and we were going to go shopping. And I was in her pantry, literally looking, going, oh my God, I got to have a snack. Because when she shops, we're going to be gone all day and I got to have a snack. I won't make it 3 hours till lunch. And I was like, what is wrong with you? Get a hold of yourself, And I always go back to that moment and think how exciting it is now that I can get on an airplane on the East Coast and I can fly to the West Coast with a coffee and a, jug of water. And I'm okay. My body, it can sustain its energy and I feel good. So that's huge. That was a big part of kind of my, health journey. And so I like to at least get my clients going at least 12 hours, because a lot of times I hear from people, they're like, yeah, I'll have a bowl of ice cream or even some chips or, something right before bed, 10 o'clock at night. And then they're up at 6 a.m., having breakfast because they know they need to have breakfast before they run out the door. And so, the thing that I like to the visual that I like to put in my client's head is, when we're not eating at night, when we're sleeping, our body is doing so many good things under the hood. It's detoxing, it's repairing, it's just doing all of these wonderful things. And when we're not sleeping and we're not, when we do put food in our body right away, it has to put all of its resources to kind of digesting food and all of the things that we are not giving it time to kind of do the natural processes that it's made to do. And so what I encourage my clients is think about, pushing back that snack, maybe closer to dinner, maybe pushing breakfast out, maybe get in some movement after you get up in the morning, and then push out breakfast a little bit and try to get to 12 hours. That's the minimum that I want to see every human being not eating, basically. I mean, obviously, if you've got, if you're nursing or pregnant or have some kind of, really chronic health issues, it may not be a good fit. But for the most part, the average healthy person should be able to go 12 hours without eating food. And again, we can talk about the fat loss and, kind of the cognitive benefits, therapeutic benefits go along with that. But yeah, that's really the foundation of everything that I teach. And I think it's just so important.
Okay, I do want to get into those fat burning pieces. I also just want to call out those people who are like, oh, I intermittent fast all day long. I have a granola bar in the morning and I don't eat till I get home. So I'm just going to throw the caveat on here that intermittent fasting has an intentionality around it. And not eating all day because you've put yourself into such a frenetic state of busyness. I'm talking to, all women. It doesn't count. That doesn't count, everyone. Let's talk about this piece around the weight loss, because I think one of the things that, the conversations I have with people who are interested in intermittent fasting, it's either I'm so type A, I want to do the next thing, or it's I want to lose weight. And we don't get to talk about the cognitive piece. It's really the thing that drives people there. So let's first talk about the weight piece, and we will not leave off the cognitive benefits of intermittent fasting as either.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Well, probably this all started for me when I started seeing the results in my own, health. I started digging into the work of Dr. Jason Fung, a neighbor of yours. And it all just kind of made sense. It just really scientifically just made a lot of sense to me. So when we're not eating, our body is doing all the healing and repair. And as soon as we eat, blood sugar and insulin is released, and insulin, ushers blood sugar into the cell, and it gives us energy to do our day, to get through our day. So when we eat breakfast, that's sort of the mechanism that takes place. But when we're not eating, the body says, okay, I'm out of glycogen stores from the meal you had last night at dinner, because we slept 8 hours, hopefully. And it's burned up all that energy, from the food that we ate. And it says, okay, she's getting up this morning and she's going to maybe go for a walk and probably not eat for maybe hopefully a couple more hours. Where should I go and get some energy to kind of get through this walk? Well, she's got some fat stores over here. Let me go tap into this fat. And so the body naturally knows how to do that. If you think ancestrally how we were made, food wasn't plentiful. If we were in the cave, for a day or two, the body went to body fat for energy. It didn't go to our muscles because we needed those muscles to go forage for food, right?
And we didn't die.
We didn't die. We were okay. And I love that. I love, telling people that. And they're like, oh my gosh, yes, Missy, that makes sense. And so the body will tap into that fat for energy. And we'll come back to that with the kind of cognitive piece, because when we're, when it's burning through body fat, and over time, it can become what we call metabolically flexible. It can say, oh, she's eating food. Let me use this food for her energy. And then when we're not eating food, it can tap into, her fat stores to burn that for her energy. And that's metabolic flexibility, when our body can go back and forth between two energy sources and sustain energy. You can have a good mood. You can have, sustained kind of not only energy, but it's just overall well-being. You know what I mean? You're not doing that sort of hangry roller coaster where you've eaten the granola bar in the morning and then you haven't eaten for several hours and that blood sugar crashes. And then all of a sudden you're ready to take somebody's head off because you're in this, blood sugar crash and you need food. And so when the body can tap over to body fat for that energy, you have a much more balanced kind of metabolism, but also much more balanced, just overall, I guess energy is the best word,
I love that you use the word flexibility, because I enjoy talking about that word for people, because we get so accustomed to talking about the symptoms of disease or the symptoms of problems in the body. And flexibility to me is a symptom of optimal health. And whether it's flexibility in terms of mindset or flexibility, like I love that you talked about metabolic flexibility, because that part is really important. Our capacity to go without food, without it being, the end of the earth, is really important. That flexibility piece, if people are like, I need a good benchmark of like what health looks like. Flexibility is such a great word. Like even fascial flexibility, our ability to touch our toes. Like it is a word that permeates optimal health in such a great way. So I love that you mentioned it. I'm curious your perspective, Missy, on coffee and intermittent fasting. In your opinion and experience, does coffee throw that off?
In my opinion and experience and all the literature that I've read through, it does not. It's when you throw in what I call the crack, when you throw in the sugar and the creamer and all the stuff that we've come to enjoy and love. I from what I know, it does not. But what I encourage people to do is to do a clean fast with just water, for a couple days or a week, once you get your body sort of in that fasting mode, and then add in the coffee and see how you feel. Do you get hungry after 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, or are you fine for a few hours, to do whatever that fasting window is that you're working towards. So like for me, I typically will fast anywhere from 16 to 20 hours during the week. But I love my coffee. It gives me a little extra boost of energy. It's kind of warm and cozy and kind of that comforty kind of thing. And just a ritual that I enjoy. But I've never had anybody tell me, honestly, they're drinking plain black coffee and they're hungry sooner than they were without it. Does that answer your question, I think?
Totally. I think people, we throw coffee into this huge category, and we don't really, I put in my Splenda and I put in my cream and I put in my whatever. That's not coffee. That's like a whole new beverage with a coffee base. And I think it's really, right. I think it's really important that we make that distinction. I want to talk a bit about detox. You alluded to this notion of a clean fast and water fast, but before we do that, can we also just speak to the cognitive benefits of intermittent fasting? Because, that would be why I would be attracted to it. But I think it's really important that people understand that benefit as well.
Yeah. So when we don't eat for an extended period of time, and when I say extended, 12, 14, 16 hours, our body will release ketones, and that's a much more efficient fuel for our brain. And the brain really thrives on ketones, which is why you hear so much about the keto diet anymore. And it can vary by person. how long it takes you to get into a state of ketosis. There's lots of factors like how long have you been fasting? What did you eat, on the last meal that you had, those kinds of things. But we know that, I've heard rumors like the techie guys in Silicon Valley, they took up intermittent fasting as a way to kind of get a leg up on the competition, because all of those guys are, so competitive, and it's just a really what's the word? Help me. What's the word? It's just a really
it's like a biohack.
Easy way.
And it is easy.
Yeah. I guess that's the word. Sorry. That was the word I was going after. But yeah, when the body is in a state of ketosis, we know that energy is plentiful, and our brain just functions better. It just is sharper and more clear.
It's like premium fuel in your car, but you only get to access the premium fuel if you do the intermittent fasting piece. Like you can't bypass it. And even, my experience using external ketones and using them with patients, which is where we take them orally separately, you can't bypass that. If your body's not looking to burn ketones, providing them doesn't create metabolic flexibility. It's only going to shift over if it needs to shift over. And so it's like so many of the good things in life, ketones are earned. You can't.
That's right.
Right. You don't just get them.
I love that.
Right. And to that notion with respect to intermittent fasting, are there things you recommend people do in terms of cleaning up their lifestyle before they start to engage in it? And not really, because it's not a quick fix. Like I said to someone the other day, I was like, everyone needs to know my career legacy, whether it's on the health side or business side, it doesn't matter. I'm like, I don't do quick fixes. That's not what I give the world. But a lot of people look to intermittent fasting as this quick fix. And I don't find that drives the best outcomes, but I would love to hear from you. What do you do to prep people to do it right?
Yes. And I think that's why people will say, I tried it. It doesn't work for me. And it's because you're eating a high carbohydrate diet. And when you've got, a lot of carbohydrates present and then you try to go without food, like I said, you can get into that sort of hangry, hypoglycemic kind of dip. And your body's like, hello, where's all the carbohydrates that you typically give me? I need those right now for this fuel. So what I tend to have people do is kind of cut back on their carbohydrate intake. And depending on what their health goals is, that can be different depending on the person. And what I typically will say is don't change anything in your diet. We're just going to focus on the fasting piece if that's where they're concerned. And let's push back your eating window by 30 minutes a day and do that until it becomes uncomfortable. And when it becomes uncomfortable, stay there. And then we kind of like regroup and, plan depending on where they are. If they're trying to get to, if they're 12 hours and they're trying to get to 20, we take it slow. You can't go from 12 to 20. It won't work. You need to really kind of ease into it and let your body sort of adapt. For sure. Right.
Otherwise it gets stressed. That you can't induce flexibility. It's not like if I push hard enough, you can touch your toes. It's going to be a little bit of work to get there. So the body's like, okay, look, it releases as it goes. And the same thing with that intermittent fasting piece. What's the relationship between detox and intermittent fasting?
Well, like I mentioned, when we're not eating, our body is naturally detoxing. It wants to detox. It wants to do the repair that it's made to do naturally. And so we also know that when we don't eat, and typically around 16 hours at a cellular level, our body goes into a state of autophagy. And that just means like cellular cleanup. Those cells, the bad cells, or the body's going in, kind of cleaning up those cells, trashing those, putting those in the garbage and getting rid of them. And that's what we all want, right? We don't want those dead cells laying around creating disease and cancer and all the things we know can happen on the other side of that. And as well as the liver. I mean, the liver gets so much, neglect, I think, in our world, because what I tell people is that, when's the last time you went to the doctor because your liver hurt? You didn't. You don't know that. It's not obvious. And so, a lot of work that I do with women, especially around hormones, is we put at least some sort of detoxification kind of self-care into their routine, whether it's, a liver supplement to kind of help boost that detoxification, or castor oil packs, or, things that just really support kind of getting rid of, hormones and toxins and all the things in our world that kind of clog up our liver. And we never really, it's kind of like our car, the light will come on and say, change the oil. But if that didn't come on, would we know our oil needed to be changed in our car? Probably not, until something started breaking, until it started sputtering, or something inside broke down as a result of that oil not getting changed. And so, yeah, I think there's so many things in life really that kind of attribute to liver congestion and just overall liver toxicity that we just don't care about. Nobody's talking about,
No, and even when people, I have patients who come in and they'll say, well, I talked to my doctor about this liver thing, and they ran liver enzymes and they're all normal. And again, we start to see elevation in liver enzymes when there's actual damage to the liver. And like right back to our conversation we had at the beginning, there's a difference between a pathological state and an optimal state. And so everything you're talking about here, again, I just want people to have this lens on it. We're talking about how do we optimize the functionality of these parts of our body. And I think, I know the thing that we definitely have in common with respect to our approach to health is that we're not trying to keep people at the lowest possible common denominator and definition of health. We're deeply committed to moving people into that state of optimization. And so, along those lines, you talked about and alluded to before a water fast. Can you just talk to people a little bit about what that is and what that benefit would look like? Because that's an advanced maneuver, but I think it's kind of fun to talk to people about those pieces too.
Yeah, totally. Yes, it's an advanced maneuver. And honestly, I've gotten to 24 hours, but I've never gone beyond that. Where I am with my health, it's not necessary. I know there are a lot of people with chronic issues or biohackers that say, ooh, I want to do it just so I can,
Right.
I want to be able to say I can do it. But yeah, it's just drinking water and allowing your body to detoxify. And from what I know about it, it can be difficult because of the routine and the habits that we have around food, in our lives, because it's part of our lifestyle, and I think that's kind of the biggest hurdle that I hear from people is once they get past that, keep themselves busy, go 24 hours, 36 hours, even beyond. After that first 36 hours or so, they have this almost like euphoric energy where the body is just so primed and, just thrives. And, and it's because we are naturally made to be in that state. Our bodies are made to handle that, that state of being. And we just never allow it to even come close to that.
Yeah. No, as you're describing that, I was like, there's a few states in life and physiological states where I'm like, the body knows exactly what to do if you get out of its way. And one is if you're having water, but you're fasting. It's like, we were built for this. This is how we all evolved. And the other one is labor. I'm like, sometimes when we just get out of our way, like we can just trust the brilliance of the body. And I just find it fascinating to have the opportunity to witness that. As we're moving into the holidays, and we're planning out how we're going to get healthy in 2021. Missy, do you have a few tips that you can give to people as they navigate the holidays so that they're like, I got a little bit of indulgence, but I got a little bit of detox and self-care that happen at the same time. Do you have some advice for navigating those pieces without letting it all disappear?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Intermittent fast, 12 hours minimum. If you're already doing that, extend it. If you're going to have the fun meal or the fun snack or treat at the end of the day, just play with your food timing. Maybe condense your eating window. Try to have your fun snacks with a meal instead of by themselves, where your insulin and blood sugar are going to have a super spike on their own. instead of being with like a protein or a fat or something that's going to kind of keep that insulin and blood sugar kind of a little more balanced. The other thing is move. I think especially as we've gone through kind of lockdown time and we're not out and doing things as much, I just encourage everybody to move a little bit more. And it doesn't have to be like interval training. It can be just, walk your dog at an extra time during the day, or get out and play with your kids, or just do some functional movement, whether it's like a wall sit or some lunges or, just some body kind of movement. I think that's really important, not only to our mental health and our physical health, but just long term to kind of keep our joints mobile and just feeling good, kind of keep the blood flowing. So those would be kind of my top two tips. And, as far as detoxification, try to sweat, anything that you can do to sweat, even if it's just a really hot Epsom salt bath, get some of those toxins out. And that's just a really quick and easy way that you don't have to really go buy a lot of things to do or subscribe to any kind of membership. It's just an easy way to kind of make sure things are still moving. I could go on for days, but yeah, those would probably be my top tips. Yeah,
I know. I love that. And sometimes it's like the most simple things we all just need to be reminded of. We need to do those things before we're doing those advanced maneuvers. And see, I feel like this is a perfect place to transition the interview. So in the latter half, we talk about something called our KPIs. And at our KPIs, just like we have key performance indicators in our business, I believe that we have them in how we live our lives as well. So I've got a few rapid fire questions for you, if you're ready.
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
I promise they're manageable.
I'm scared.
First one, what's the most impactful book or conversation you've had or read during the pandemic?
Oh, actually, it was not that long ago. And I had somebody talk about the silver lining of the pandemic and being present with their children. And, I feel like I had several conversations early on, but this one just really hit me hard. She was talking about the holidays, and she said, on Christmas Eve, I sit in church and I sometimes kind of want to cry that the entire season has passed me by and I feel like I haven't experienced any of it. And for some reason, that just really hit me hard, because she was like, my goal is to not let this season get by without kind of taking in all those special moments and just getting to Christmas Eve in church, Mm-hmm. And so that was super impactful for me. Yeah.
It's so true. It's so easy to just get to the destination. What is the one thing you are most consistent with respect to your health?
Probably my fasting, and probably how I break my fast. We didn't really talk about that, but that's super, super important. You've given your body all this time to heal and detox and do these great things. Don't put in any junk. That's the time that it's really ready to absorb and assimilate all the nutrients that you can put in. So just flood your body with as many nutrients as you can. So I always break my fast with a shake that has a little bit of fruit, just because I don't do well with fruit, vegetables, seeds, nuts, whatever kind of spurs my interest that day. But I always break my fast with as much nutrition as I can.
I love that. What is something totally badass about you that people would not otherwise know?
Oh, badass. I can throw a football like a guy.
Yeah. Or
I was the quarterback for my Powder Puff team.
That's amazing. Okay, that's pretty awesome. What do you do for fun or play besides football?
I like to run. I've reignited my love for running. And I just love to kind of be outdoors. Anything outdoors, I love looking at the clouds, and it just kind of helps me to take deep breaths and let my shoulders down. Yeah.
I love this. And finally, last question for you, Missy. Entrepreneurism. Are we born this way, or do we learn to become entrepreneurs?
I think I definitely was born an entrepreneur. I don't know why, but when I look at the rest of my family, I can see sort of the difference. But I do think we can learn, for sure, 100%. We can all learn I think sometimes it takes having the right people in your life to encourage that when it's not sort of in who you are. Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Missy Bane, this has been such an interesting interview, so timely for where people's heads are at as we move into early 2021. Where can we send people to learn more about the important work you're putting into the world?
So my website is my name, Missy Bane, and I'm all on social media, variations of my name, FDNP, Missy.Bane on Instagram. But yeah, come find me. I'd love to connect.
Sounds great. Missy, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Megan. Thanks for having me.
Entrepology is the study and science of what makes entrepreneurs tick. It's the confluence of the mindset, strategic thinking, and health that we bring to the table as individuals compelled to create and contribute in this world. You know, it's a lonely place to be at the top. It's a lonely place to feel like you are different, which is why we have our Entrepology Collective, a free Facebook group where women just like you gather to explore the ideas, philosophy, health, optimization, and the notion of purpose that we bring to our lives. The Entrepology Collective is open to anyone. You can find us on Facebook, and it's where people just like you are going to be hanging. Until next week, live life on, in, and with purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Walker, and I will talk to you soon.